You wouldn't want to be a firefighter, not even for a single day. I don't say this because I doubt your courage. Honestly, I believe everyone has their own limits, and bravery isn't something you can measure by mere promises or polite compliments. But the truth about this job is always harsher, more brutal, and more relentless than anything you've heard or seen on TV. The roaring flames ripping through darkness, deafening explosions, frantic cries from terrified people losing everything they've built, it's all so real that even after almost 10 years on the job, I still wrestle with a deep, primal fear every time I confront a major fire. My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 37 years old and a firefighter in St. Louis, Missouri. Born and raised here, I know every breath of this place, often called America's gateway to the West. St. Louis is a beautiful yet challenging city, known for brutally hot summers and biting cold winters. Summer is my least favorite season. The city becomes a giant tinderbox, always on the verge of bursting into flames. St. Louis isn't just famous for historical landmarks like the Eads Bridge or the towering Gateway Arch. It's also known for a rich blend of cultures, balancing modern vibrancy with historical charm. But beneath all that beauty lies a harsher reality. Unemployment, glaring economic disparities, and violent crime, especially drug-related violence, leave parts of the city in chaos. As firefighters, we witness firsthand those darker sides daily: impoverished neighborhoods, broken families, desperate lives. At times, I feel utterly powerless seeing the raw truth behind these closed doors. I live with my wife, Sarah, and our 2 kids, Jenna, who's 9, and Lucas, who's in a modest house in the suburbs, about a 15-minute drive from downtown. Sarah teaches math at a local middle school. Her salary isn't huge, but it's enough. She's calm, gentle, yet incredibly strong. Over the years, Sarah has learned to cope with the anxiety and uncertainty every time I head out to a call. I know she's always quietly worried, especially when my shift takes me away in the middle of the night, but Sarah rarely voices those fears. She doesn't want to burden me any further. Our daughter Jenna is smart, sensitive, and loves to draw. She often sketches me in my firefighter gear standing bravely in front of burning houses, always adding the caption, "My dad is my hero." It fills me with pride but also breaks my heart. I've never wanted to be anyone's hero. All I've ever wanted is to do my job well enough to come back safely to my family each night. Lucas, on the other hand, is energetic and always cheerful. He loves telling his classmates that his dad can extinguish any fire. Those innocent words sometimes make me smile, but they also add pressure. I know I can't fail when faced with that innocent, unconditional trust from my kids. My mother, Margaret, who's 68, lives with us too. She's a retired nurse, forced into early retirement due to deteriorating health, especially severe arthritis that makes moving difficult. My father died in a car accident when I was very young, so Mom raised me alone. It's from her that I learned courage and resilience in the face of life's hardships. She rarely complains, always putting on a brave face. I know she's proud of my job, but like Sarah, she keeps her deepest fears hidden inside. We manage on a firefighter's salary and a middle school teacher's income. Honestly, it's not easy. Neither profession pays exceptionally well, but we get by. Our lives are simple but happy. Still, deep down, sometimes I question my choice of career. Every time I leave home, I know it could be the last time I see Sarah, the kids, or my mother. There was one night when I was responding to a massive house fire. The building collapsed seconds after I stepped out of the danger zone. A few seconds later, and I would have never made it home. In that terrifying moment, memories of my family flooded through me like a wave. I truly understood then the price we firefighters sometimes pay, far heavier than what society sees from the outside. I'm not here to glamorize or exaggerate what I do, and I'm certainly not trying to paint firefighters as larger-than-life heroes. I just want you to understand this job is dangerous, terrifying, and exhausting. If you aren't prepared mentally and emotionally, you wouldn't last even a single day. And now, having learned a little about my life, perhaps you understand why I say you wouldn't want to do this job not even for one day. But I do believe that even if you wouldn't want to be a firefighter yourself, you might want to learn about the lives of everyday people like us who wear this uniform, to better understand life's limits, the meaning of sacrifice, and the real essence of courage. Because sometimes, true bravery isn't about never being afraid. It's about living every day, face to face with your fears. My day starts early, typically around 5:30 in the morning. The fire station is located roughly 10 miles from our suburban home, an easy 20-minute drive if traffic cooperates. However, in a city like St. Louis, rush hour can turn even a short commute into an exhausting crawl, so I always leave home earlier than necessary. The extra time also helps clear my mind and mentally prepare me for whatever the day might bring. Our firehouse Station 17 is a modest, red brick building constructed back in the 1970s, showing signs of its age but still standing strong, much like the team it houses. Located at the edge of downtown St. Louis, it serves a diverse and densely populated area, including neighborhoods with both towering apartment complexes and tightly packed family homes. When I arrive at the station around 6 a.m., the first thing I do is gear up. I change into my official uniform, a dark blue shirt embroidered with our badge, rugged navy trousers, and black boots polished enough to reflect my face. In our line of work, appearance matters not just as a point of pride, but because a professional appearance reassures the community that we're prepared to handle any situation. Hanging neatly near my locker are my turnout gear: fire-resistant pants, heavy jacket, helmet, gloves, and boots, all carefully checked and ready for action at a moment's notice. After dressing, I join the shift briefing at precisely 6:30 a.m. We gather around the kitchen table, cups of steaming coffee in hand, listening as Captain Reyes summarizes the overnight events, minor incidents, ongoing cases, important updates on equipment, and any notable problems from other shifts. We also review our individual assignments, rotations, and duties for the day. At Station 17, shifts typically last 24 hours, with a schedule of 1 day on, 2 days off, averaging around 3 shifts per week. It's demanding, but it gives us valuable time at home to recharge. On days without active fire emergencies, which thankfully do happen, we remain busy with critical tasks. Immediately following our briefing, we meticulously inspect all equipment and vehicles. Every morning involves a full checkup of our fire engines, hoses, oxygen tanks, ladders, and other essential tools. Each piece must be perfectly functional, cleaned, and ready for use. This daily inspection isn't merely routine, it's literally life-saving. Overlooking even a small defect could cost someone dearly in the heat of the moment. After equipment checks, training begins. Ongoing training is mandatory and extensive, covering everything from standard firefighting techniques to first aid and emergency medical response. We frequently run simulated drills, rehearsing scenarios involving burning buildings, hazardous material spills, or vehicle extrications. These drills keep us sharp and ready. Our muscle memory must always outweigh fear when chaos inevitably strikes. Between drills and checks, we spend considerable time on community outreach. Often, we visit local schools, speaking to kids about fire safety, demonstrating our gear, and explaining what we do. Their eyes always widen with awe at the sight of our equipment, but our primary mission is ensuring they remember basic safety rules, because prevention is far easier than fighting fires. Lunch and dinner at the firehouse are special moments. Meals are usually cooked collectively, bringing us together in a way few other activities can. There's a comforting camaraderie as we chop vegetables, grill meat, and banter about sports or family news. These communal meals are more than mere sustenance. They're moments when bonds form between firefighters who must rely completely on one another in emergencies. When we're not busy with training or community visits, there's always plenty of station maintenance, cleaning floors, washing the engines, restocking supplies, and ensuring the building itself remains pristine. Cleanliness isn't just about pride, it directly impacts efficiency during emergencies. When that alarm sounds, we can't afford a second wasted finding misplaced equipment. My salary, considering the demands and risks of the job, is modest, around $55,000 a year. It's enough to support a family when combined with Sarah's teaching salary, but it certainly doesn't make us wealthy. Fortunately, additional benefits help balance things out. The city provides comprehensive health insurance, which is essential given the inherent risks of firefighting, along with retirement contributions and life insurance policies. We also receive overtime pay and occasional hazard bonuses during especially challenging periods. It's not lavish, but I feel appreciated, even if money has never been my primary motivation for this work. Still, every firefighter knows we're not in this career for the financial rewards. The biggest benefit is intangible yet priceless, the pride of protecting lives, homes, and communities. The gratitude in someone's eyes when we've saved something irreplaceable to them, their family, their pet, or their home, is more rewarding than any paycheck could ever be. In quieter moments at the station, particularly during late evenings, I sometimes find myself reflecting on the choices that brought me here. Despite the fears and dangers I face daily, despite the toll the long hours and intense stress take on my family life, I can't imagine myself anywhere else. Being a firefighter isn't merely a job, it's an identity. The sense of purpose, the bond with my fellow firefighters, the knowledge that I'm doing something meaningful every single day, these things anchor me, reminding me exactly why I chose this path. But of course, such quiet moments rarely last. The abrupt blare of the station alarm snaps us back to reality. When that happens, everything else instantly fades. Fears, doubts, fatigue, and instinct takes over. With hearts racing, we throw on our gear, slide down poles, leap onto trucks, and race toward danger, not knowing exactly what awaits us, only knowing that whatever it is, we'll face it together. That's the reality of my life as a firefighter. It isn't glamorous or heroic like Hollywood portrays. It's exhausting, dangerous, emotionally draining, yet undeniably fulfilling. Every day when I return home, whether covered in soot or simply weary from the daily grind, I know I've made a difference. And in that quiet satisfaction lies all the compensation I truly need. One night, just as I was drifting into sleep after what had seemed like an ordinary shift, the piercing sound of the station alarm shattered the quiet, jolting me awake at exactly 2:15 a.m. My heart instantly began pounding, adrenaline surging through me. Despite facing hundreds of emergency calls throughout my career, the initial wave of fear and urgency never seemed to diminish. Sleep vanished in an instant, replaced by sharp awareness as I leaped from my bunk, swiftly grabbing my gear. Bright fluorescent lights flooded the station as our team quickly geared up, pulling on turnout pants, heavy jackets, helmets, and grabbing vital equipment. Captain Reyes's voice rose above the organized chaos, authoritative and urgent. It's a large apartment complex, multiple reports of trapped occupants. Move quickly. Within moments, we were barreling through the empty streets of St. Louis, lights flashing and sirens wailing, echoing sharply through the sleeping city. Over the radio, dispatch provided continuous updates. The fire was consuming the third and fourth floors of a 5-story apartment building downtown, with potential gas leaks and significant structural damage. As we approached the scene, my stomach tightened painfully at the grim spectacle before us. The aging apartment complex had become a towering inferno, flames roaring aggressively from shattered windows and thick black smoke spiraling skyward. Residents, many in pajamas and robes hastily thrown over shoulders, stood outside shivering, panic and despair etched clearly on their faces beneath the pulsing glow of emergency lights. My heart sank as a desperate woman's scream caught my attention. She was frantically pointing toward an upper-floor window, her voice cracking with terror. "My son is still up there. Please, you have to help him." Her wide, pleading eyes met mine, leaving an image permanently seared into my memory. Captain Reyes wasted no time, barking clear orders above the noise and confusion. "Third floor, southeast corner. "Carter, Mitchell, get in there. We'll back you up. Move." With no hesitation, Mitchell and I charged forward. Even from outside, the heat slammed into us like a physical force. I tightened my oxygen mask as we pushed through the front doors, entering a world overwhelmed by flames and choking smoke. Visibility immediately reduced to nearly zero. Flames crackled around us, accompanied by the ominous groan of weakened beams. Through the dense smoke, we carefully moved along the debris-filled hallway, systematically checking rooms and shouting through our masks, "Fire department. Is anyone here? Call out if you can." Sweat poured down my face beneath my heavy protective gear, every breath through the mask feeling labored and precious. Each step deeper into the inferno felt heavier, and the growing threat of structural collapse became all too real. Fear gripped me, not just fear of flames or collapsing structures, but the gut-wrenching fear of failing to save a life. That mother's terrified face haunted every step I took. Suddenly, a faint coughing sound reached us from behind a partially obstructed door. "I hear something," Mitchell shouted urgently, pointing toward the sound. Together, we forced the door open, sending splinters flying. Inside, huddled in a corner, was a young boy, maybe 7 or 8, his eyes wide with terror, gasping desperately for air through the thick smoke. I quickly knelt down, ensuring he saw my eyes clearly through my mask, and calmly spoke, "My name's Daniel. We're going to get you out, buddy. You're safe now." The boy weakly nodded, clinging tightly to my arm as I carefully scooped him into my arms. Just as we stepped back into the hallway, an immense explosion rocked the building, the entire structure trembling beneath our feet. A huge section of ceiling collapsed violently, blocking our initial exit route with burning debris. "We need another way out fast," Mitchell shouted, his voice tight with tension. Fighting the rising panic, I scanned the smoke-filled corridor and spotted another staircase at the far end, partially hidden but still intact. "There!" I shouted, pointing toward our last remaining hope. We quickly maneuvered toward the stairs, heat blistering our skin even through the protective gear. Mitchell followed closely behind, spraying water to keep the flames from closing off our path. Each step felt like navigating through a furnace, and the stairway creaked dangerously beneath our feet. But we pressed forward, driven by desperation and determination. Finally, we burst into the open air, coughing violently as fresh oxygen flooded into our lungs. A collective cheer erupted from the gathered crowd as paramedics swiftly took the boy from my arms, rushing him to safety. Exhausted, I collapsed onto the curb, tearing off my mask and gulping down air. Mitchell slumped beside me, gripping my shoulder tightly in silent gratitude. As I struggled to catch my breath, the boy's mother approached slowly, her eyes brimming with tears. Without saying a word, she grasped my hand firmly. Her silent gratitude spoke louder than any words could. My throat tightened painfully, moments like these justified every risk I had ever taken. It took another hour before we fully controlled the blaze. Remarkably, everyone had survived, though the building itself was nearly destroyed. Later, as we packed up our equipment, exhaustion weighed heavily upon me, yet so did a quiet sense of pride. Back at the station, silence filled the air as we carefully cleaned our gear, each of us processing the night's trauma in our own ways. Before dawn approached, I finally collapsed onto my bunk, physically drained but emotionally unable to rest. Memories replayed vividly: the boy's frightened eyes, his mother's desperate cries, the terrifying sound of the collapsing ceiling. Lying there, feeling the familiar blend of fear, pride, and relief washing over me once again, I knew these emotions would forever be woven into the fabric of my life. Surviving tonight didn't guarantee tomorrow's safety. Another fire, another life-threatening challenge awaited, perhaps sooner rather than later. Yet no matter how daunting the next alarm might be, I knew deep inside I'd rise again, ready to confront whatever dangers lay ahead. After all, true bravery isn't living without fear, it's choosing, every single time, to step forward despite it. After that night's devastating fire, the city newspapers and local TV stations briefly hailed us as heroes. Pictures of our exhausted faces, blurred by soot and sweat, appeared alongside headlines that praised our bravery and selfless sacrifice. People approached us on the street, offering heartfelt thanks and calling us courageous, but as much as I appreciated the recognition, I felt strangely distant from it all. The truth is, when the spotlight fades, the difficult reality of being a firefighter remains unseen by the public. People see our uniforms, our bravery in emergencies, our calm faces in moments of crisis, but they rarely see the deeper scars beneath our protective gear. In the days following that fire, sleep became a battle. Each time I closed my eyes, vivid images haunted meth-desperate mother pleading for her child, the collapsing ceiling inches from ending our lives, and worst of all, the terrified face of the boy I carried to safety. Sarah noticed my restlessness but hesitated to ask, knowing too well how difficult it was for me to open up about these experiences. I hated burdening her with the darkness of my world, yet I struggled silently, unsure of how to escape the weight of what I'd seen. One afternoon, as I quietly washed dishes, lost in thought, I felt a small hand tugging at my shirt. Turning around, I saw Jenna's gentle eyes staring up at me, worry etched onto her young face. "Daddy, why are you sad?" she asked softly. I knelt down, suddenly realizing how perceptive my daughter had become. Taking a deep breath, I tried to explain gently, "Sometimes Daddy just has a lot on his mind, sweetheart. You don't need to worry about me." She shook her head determinedly. "Mommy says it's okay to feel sad, even for grown-ups. You always tell me to talk about things that make me scared. Why don't you?" Her innocent words pierced through my heart, revealing a truth I had avoided confronting. I smiled softly, pulling her into a warm hug. "You're right, Jenna. Daddy will try harder." That evening, after putting the kids to bed, I finally opened up to Sarah. As we sat together on the porch beneath a starless sky, I allowed my deepest fears and doubts to spill out freely, describing the fire, the boy, the mother's anguished face. Sarah listened quietly, her hand gripping mine tightly, offering silent reassurance. "I worry that someday I won't come home," I confessed, voice breaking slightly. "Or worse, that I'll fail someone who's counting on me. The fear of losing someone on my watch is something I just can't shake." She leaned closer, her voice gentle yet unwavering. "Dan, what you do takes extraordinary courage. You can't save everyone, you know that. But you always show up, giving everything you have. You've saved countless lives already. I'm so proud of you, not because you're perfect, but because you never stop trying." Her words resonated deeply, providing the reassurance I desperately needed. But I also realized something else: I wasn't alone. My family was walking this difficult path beside me, quietly absorbing my stress, anxiety, and fears. They too bore the weight of my profession, a hidden cost rarely discussed in public conversations about firefighting. Returning to the station the following shift, I found myself looking at my teammates differently. Behind the familiar smiles, I now recognized subtle signs of exhaustion, anxiety, and unspoken grief. We all carried our own burdens quietly, rarely speaking about the emotional toll of our work. It was an unspoken rule we protected each other in every emergency, yet we struggled alone with the psychological impacts once the flames were extinguished. One evening, after another tiring shift filled with minor emergencies and routine calls, I noticed Captain Reyes sitting alone in the darkened kitchen. He stared into his coffee mug, lost deep in thought. I hesitated at first, unsure if I should disturb him, but eventually approached cautiously. "You all right, Cap?" I asked softly. He glanced up, his face weary but grateful. "You know, Dan, sometimes I wonder how much longer I can keep this up. After 30 years, I still take every loss personally. And the older I get, the heavier it feels." We sat in silence for a moment, each understanding precisely what the other meant. Finally, he added softly, but then I remind myself why I started in the first place. We're not in this job because it's easy. We're here because we're the few willing to stand up when others can't. We carry the weight, so others don't have to. His words echoed in my mind long after he'd left. That conversation taught me an important lesson. True strength doesn't come from suppressing your emotions, but from openly acknowledging and confronting them. Captain Reyes had shown vulnerability without shame, providing a model of strength I could aspire to emulate. In the weeks that followed, I slowly learned to share my burdens more openly. I talked more honestly with my team, checked in on their emotional states, and made sure they knew they could rely on me. I joined informal gatherings after shifts, sharing stories, laughter, and sometimes tears, realizing how much we all needed these connections. Sarah noticed the change at home too. I slept better, smiled more freely, and rediscovered a sense of purpose that went beyond mere survival. The nightmares gradually receded, replaced by a stronger feeling of control over my own emotional health. Still, I knew the battle would never fully end. Every call, every emergency, every potential tragedy remained an emotional test. But now, armed with the understanding that I wasn't alone, I felt stronger. I no longer needed to silently bear the heavy emotional toll of my profession. Instead, I leaned on those around me, offering and receiving support freely. I learned something crucial during those challenging weeks. Being a firefighter wasn't just about battling physical flames. It was equally about confronting invisible fires within ourselves, the lingering anxieties, hidden fears, and silent grief. True bravery wasn't pretending these fires didn't exist. It was facing them openly, honestly, day after day, even when that felt impossibly hard. And though I knew more challenges awaited, I felt a renewed determination. Because now, more than ever, I understood exactly why I had chosen this life, why I would continue showing up, day after day, despite all its emotional scars and burdens. It was because beneath every scar lay proof of resilience, strength, and most importantly, the profound humanity that defines who we truly are. After everything I had experienced, life gradually returned to its familiar rhythm. Yet something profound had shifted within me, a new awareness, a deeper appreciation for both the fragility and resilience of life. As weeks turned into months, I found myself looking at each day with newfound gratitude, even on days filled with uncertainty or exhaustion. One warm Saturday afternoon, several months after that devastating apartment fire, our community organized an event honoring local first responders. The event was held in a small park near the fire station, and I reluctantly attended at the insistence of Sarah and the kids. Initially uncomfortable with attention, I stood quietly among the crowd, observing families and children enjoying the festivities around us. Then I felt a gentle tap on my shoulder. Turning around, I saw a familiar face, the young boy from that terrible night. He looked healthier now, bright-eyed and smiling, accompanied by his mother. Before I could speak, the boy stepped forward and hugged me tightly. "Thank you for saving my life," he whispered softly, his voice full of emotion. I knelt down, smiling warmly. "You're a brave kid," I told him, gently ruffling his hair. "You gave me strength that night, more than you know." His mother stood by silently, tears streaming down her face. "We think of you every day," she finally said. "I want you to know the difference you made, not just saving him, but giving our whole family another chance. Thank you doesn't begin to cover it." In that simple moment, I felt the weight I'd carried begin to lift. It wasn't fame, money, or even recognition I'd ever sought. It was precisely this, the quiet knowledge that what we did truly mattered. Each action, each choice we made as firefighters, carried the potential to change lives forever. The ceremony proceeded, and I watched as awards were presented to my colleagues. Each firefighter stepped forward, humble and hesitant, always preferring to stay behind the scenes. When my name was called, I reluctantly moved toward the stage, uncomfortable with being singled out. Yet as I stood there, listening to heartfelt applause, I realized this recognition wasn't really about me. It represented every firefighter, every family, every sacrifice made silently behind the scenes. Later that evening, back home on our front porch beneath a sky scattered with stars, Sarah and I quietly discussed our lives. The kids had fallen asleep, the neighborhood was calm, and the air felt peaceful. I glanced at Sarah, noticing how the dim porch light softened her features, and I felt a profound sense of gratitude for everything we had built together, despite the uncertainty and struggles we had faced along the way. "Do you ever wish I'd chosen something different?" I asked her gently, my voice barely louder than a whisper. "A safer job, less demanding, less stressful?" She shook her head immediately, her expression firm but warm. "I fell in love with who you are, Dan. Not in spite of your job, but partly because of it. The compassion, courage, and commitment you show every single day, it's what makes you who you are. And I wouldn't trade that for anything." Her words echoed in my heart, a comforting balm to years of quiet doubts. I knew then that our lives, with all their complexities and dangers, had shaped us into something strong, resilient, and deeply meaningful. Perhaps true purpose wasn't found in a life free of risk or fear, but rather in choosing to face those things head-on, day after day, because the rewards, love, gratitude, community far outweighed the sacrifices. In the weeks and months that followed, my perspective continued to shift. I found myself more actively mentoring younger firefighters, openly discussing mental health, and striving to break the stigma around vulnerability. The bonds within our fire station grew stronger as we collectively acknowledged and embraced our shared humanity. Years from now, when my time as an active firefighter comes to an end, I'll know I gave everything I had, not just to the job, but to my family, my community, and myself. My experiences taught me that bravery isn't found in fearless heroics, but in everyday choice, in waking each morning ready to face uncertainty, in pushing forward despite fear, and in having the strength to admit vulnerability. Courage was about showing up, time after time, because lives depended on it, including our own. Today, when someone asks me what it's really like being a firefighter, I don't sugarcoat the truth. Yes, it's dangerous, exhausting, and emotionally taxing. And no, it's certainly not a life for everyone. But it's also deeply rewarding and profoundly human. I've seen pain and loss, but I've also witnessed incredible resilience, hope, and love. Most importantly, I've learned that behind every firefighter's tough exterior lies a heart driven by compassion, shaped by struggle, and healed by connection. We're ordinary people who, when faced with extraordinary situations, choose to rise again and again, not because we are fearless, but precisely because we acknowledge our fear and move forward anyway. As I watch Jenna and Lucas grow, I often think about what I hope to pass on to them, not a legacy of heroic deeds or medals, but something simpler yet far more valuable, the understanding that life's meaning isn't found in avoiding hardships, but in facing them with honesty, courage, and compassion. Tonight, sitting quietly on the porch, Sarah's hand resting gently in mine, I understand this more deeply than ever. Life, like firefighting, isn't about escaping the flames, it's about learning to navigate them. And though tomorrow's challenges remain unknown, I feel ready to meet them, strengthened by love, supported by community, and guided by the lessons I've learned. After all, as I've come to believe deeply, true heroes aren't defined by their fearlessness, they're defined by their willingness to act despite fear. That, more than anything, is what makes the journey worth taking, no matter how difficult the road ahead might seem.